She had just gone live, smiling, relaxed, laughing at comments as they rolled in. To her audience, Valeria Márquez was the same magnetic young woman they'd grown to love over the past year. Funny, insightful, a little sarcastic, always full of warmth. No one watching could have imagined that within 24 hours she would be dead. No one realized they were watching the last moments of her life unfold in real time. What started as a typical night of content creation would soon turn into one of the most chilling true crime cases ever to play out on Livestream. This is not a story about an influencer or a stalker. It's about trust, how it's built, how it's exploited, and how it can be the most dangerous thing you give to the wrong person. Valeria was 22. She had dreams that felt just within reach. Born in Medellin to a modest, hard-working family, she was the first in her household to attend university, pursuing a degree in journalism while balancing multiple jobs, editing freelance articles, tutoring high school students, even working weekends as a tour guide. Her friends admired her for how much she could juggle and still make time for people. She had a bright future, the kind that doesn't usually make headlines until it's stolen. Streaming started as a hobby for her during the pandemic, like it did for many young people stuck inside with too much time and not enough connection. But unlike most, Valeria had that intangible spark. People wanted to hear what she had to say. She wasn't loud or flashy, just real. She grew a loyal following across several platforms, especially in the Latin American gaming and lifestyle community, where her voice began to carry weight. It was through this online world that she met him, Esteban Cardenas, a fellow Colombian streamer going by the alias Z4K-Shadow. He was older by 6 years, had a bigger platform, and often positioned himself as someone who could help smaller creators grow. That's how it started. He offered advice on how to monetize, gave her shout-outs, even collaborated with her on a couple of low-stakes gaming streams. At first, Valeria thought she was making a valuable connection, a colleague who saw her potential. Their early conversations were light, professional, and positive. But over time, the tone shifted. He started messaging more often, taking an interest in her life beyond streaming, asking about her family, her schedule, the people she hung out with. At first, it seemed like harmless curiosity, but he always knew just how to phrase things so it didn't feel invasive. He made her feel seen, supported, special. What Valeria didn't realize, what no one realized, was that Esteban had a long history of manipulation, not legally documented, not public, but visible in fragments if you knew where to look. Former partners, anonymous online users, even moderators from his streams had tried to distance themselves from him, citing controlling behavior, erratic moods, and explosive jealousy. He was clever, though. He never crossed the line in public. Everything abusive stayed private, buried in messages behind closed doors, or written off as just being intense. When he told Valeria he wanted to visit Medellin, it wasn't framed as romantic. He said he needed a break from Bogota, a place to clear his head, maybe collaborate in person. He made it seem casual. Valeria, generous to a fault, agreed. They'd been speaking for just under 3 months when he arrived. He brought gifts. He acted gracious. Her friends said he was quiet, maybe awkward, but polite enough. But from the moment he entered her home, something shifted. Valeria started responding to messages less. Her usual rhythm changed. On stream, she seemed distracted, sometimes even hesitant. A few times, she made vague jokes about needing a vacation from her vacation. Behind the jokes, there was unease. She didn't say anything explicitly, but friends began picking up on the red flags. In private texts, she mentioned that Esteban had a habit of hovering near her when she was online, reading her chats, asking questions about who certain viewers were. Once she mentioned how he didn't like when she replied to male followers, how he made comments like, "Why do they all talk to you like that?" It wasn't violent. It wasn't even a fight. It was just pressure, control disguised as concern. There was one message she sent to a friend that stands out more than any other. She wrote, "He's not bad. He just gets really intense when he thinks I'm not giving him enough attention. I think he feels threatened by the whole internet thing. Maybe it's a guy thing. It wasn't fear, not yet. It was discomfort, wrapped in justification. Valeria was doing what so many do, rationalizing behavior that felt wrong because she didn't want to believe the worst. She didn't want to think that someone she'd let into her life could become dangerous. And by the time she began to suspect something was off, it was already too late. Esteban wasn't visiting Medellin to escape stress or collaborate on content. He had come for her, and he wasn't planning to leave without her, one way or another. The first sign that something was wrong came in the form of silence. Valeria, who almost never missed a scheduled stream or left messages unanswered for long, suddenly went quiet. No explanation, no warning. Her last few posts had shown her smiling with Esteban, eating arepas at a local cafe, walking near the botanical gardens, tagging each other in playful stories. It all looked normal, but behind that filtered calm, things had already begun to spiral. Friends who had seen them during his visit recalled a strange energy, subtle but unsettling. Esteban always seemed to be watching her, even when she wasn't paying attention. He didn't speak much, but his eyes didn't wander. He clung to her in a way that felt territorial. At first, people assumed it was awkwardness or maybe social anxiety. But as the days passed, it became clear he was monitoring her, not just being near her, but studying her every move. Valeria's demeanor shifted. She was still herself, still trying to make others comfortable, but her usual ease was missing. She hesitated more during conversations, looked over her shoulder more often, and in private messages, she began hinting at how suffocating Esteban's presence had become. In one message, she said she felt like she was hosting a stranger who knows everything about me, but doesn't want me to have a life outside of him. It was chilling in retrospect because by that point, Esteban had already begun exhibiting behavior that experts now recognize as pre-violence indicators. Controlling language, emotional dependency, fixation, and withdrawal from reality. The moment she suggested they take a break from streaming to just enjoy the city, he reportedly became cold. He wasn't there for the city, he was there for her attention. All of it. Then came the night of March 17th. Valeria had planned a casual live stream to catch up with her audience. She told a few friends she was feeling better, that she and Esteban had talked things out, and that he had apologized for being overbearing. That night, she appeared online like usual. Bright lights, soft background music, her voice calm but slightly off, as if she were trying a little too hard to seem normal. She welcomed viewers, laughed at jokes, and began answering questions from the chat. Then, midway through a sentence, her eyes flicked off screen. Her smile faltered for just a second. She chuckled nervously, saying something like, "I think my guest wants to go to sleep early tonight." Then she paused again. Her hand hovered near her phone. There was a noise, something indistinct, maybe a door shutting, maybe footsteps. She looked tense, not terrified, but aware. What no one realized in that moment was that Esteban was just outside the frame. He had been watching the stream in real time from the other room, tracking every comment, every interaction, every second of her attention that wasn't directed at him. Later investigations would find tabs open on his laptop showing her chat window, along with multiple messages he'd written to her and deleted before sending. It was obsession distilled into digital form. And then it happened, so fast and so shockingly that many viewers weren't sure what they'd just seen. Valeria turned sharply, her body shifted, and the stream shook violently. Her microphone picked up a sound, maybe a shout, maybe something falling. The feed went black. Some watchers assumed it was a tech issue, maybe her internet dropped. Others thought she'd ended it abruptly because of an argument. But a few viewers who knew her well felt it immediately. This wasn't like her. Within minutes, concerned followers began messaging her Instagram, tagging her on Twitter, asking if she was okay. One viewer clipped the final 15 seconds and posted it with the caption, "Something weird just happened on Valeria's stream. Anyone else see this?" That video exploded online. People slowed it down, enhanced the audio, tried to decipher what was said. Some claimed to hear her whisper, "Stop." Others heard a crash and a gasp. Theories flew, but none of them came close to the truth. The reality was that the camera had captured the beginning of Valeria's final moments. When police later reviewed the raw feed from her streaming platform, they saw more. Footage that never made it to broadcast because the stream had cut. In it, Esteban can be heard yelling, though the words are muffled. Valeria tries to speak, but her voice is drowned out by something slamming. Then silence. By the time her screen went dark for her audience, the attack had already begun. Esteban didn't flee right away. He stayed in the apartment for hours after the murder, according to digital timestamps. He used her phone to send a message to her mother, something vague, saying she was going to bed early. He deleted several chat logs and attempted to wipe their messages on Telegram, but he didn't know about the data backups. He didn't know that her friends were already sounding the alarm. By the next morning, Valeria's closest friend, Lucia, had contacted the police. She'd tried calling and gotten no answer. The door to Valeria's apartment was locked from the inside, and neighbors reported hearing thuds late at night, followed by silence. Authorities forced entry just after noon on March 18th. What they found was haunting. Valeria was lifeless, lying near her workspace. No forced entry, no sign of theft, just the unmistakable evidence of a personal, violent act. Esteban was gone. Her laptop was missing, so was her phone. But the signs pointed in only one direction. Within hours, an arrest warrant was issued. The Livestream community erupted with grief, disbelief, and a desperate hunger for answers. How could this have happened in real time, with hundreds watching, and no one able to stop it? What had they missed? And what kind of man commits a murder while the world is just a few clicks away? She had thousands of eyes on her, and still, no one could save her. Valeria Márquez's final moments didn't happen in the shadows or behind a closed door. They unfolded live, on a stream filled with fans, supporters, and complete strangers, all unknowingly watching the countdown to her murder. But what happened next would shake an entire country. When her screen went dark and her presence vanished, it didn't take long for those closest to her to raise the alarm. Within hours, messages were flying across WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter. "Have you heard from Valeria? Did anyone talk to her after the stream?" The fear was instant and visceral. People knew something was wrong. They just didn't know how bad it really was. When police entered her apartment, the scene was devastating. No one who saw her body that day has spoken publicly in detail out of respect for her family. What is known is that she had been strangled, and based on the forensics, it happened not long after her live stream ended. There were no signs of forced entry or robbery. No valuables missing except her laptop and phone, which Esteban took with him, likely in an attempt to erase messages, delete evidence, and delay the investigation. He underestimated how fast the online world would react. Valeria's followers mobilized immediately, and within a day her name was trending across Latin America. Screenshots of the final stream, timestamps, comments, even theories about what happened. Everything became part of a growing public record, and among those screenshots was a crucial piece of evidence. A blurry image of Esteban's face partially visible in the background during her last moments. It didn't take long for authorities to track him down. Just over 36 hours after Valeria's body was discovered, Esteban Cardenas was found in Pereira, over 400 kilometers from Medellin, attempting to cross into a rural area near the Colombian-Ecuadorian border. He was wearing the same clothes seen in the live stream, carrying Valeria's passport, her phone, and a flash drive containing months of private messages between them. His arrest was swift. The evidence was overwhelming. But what shocked investigators most was his confession. Esteban admitted to everything, stating during questioning that he couldn't accept being ignored and that Valeria was slipping away. In his words, he had been pushed too far. He described their final argument not as a fight, but as a moment where he realized she would never belong to him. He used the word belong. That's how he saw her, not as a person, but as something he believed he was owed. The prosecution moved quickly. Esteban was charged with aggravated femicide, a legal classification in Colombia applied to murders committed against women based on gender, often involving jealousy, possession, or control. Under Colombian law, aggravated femicide carries one of the harshest penalties available, up to 50 years in prison, with no eligibility for early release. The trial became a national spectacle, with reporters camped outside the courtroom and protesters gathering daily holding signs, reading Ni una menos, not one less. Inside the courtroom, prosecutors painted a clear picture. Esteban had planned his visit with the intent to isolate and control Valeria. They presented chat logs where he pressured her to quit streaming, to cut off male followers, and to focus on what really matters. They showed the messages he sent after her death, attempting to stage alibis and mislead her loved ones. The jury didn't take long. In a unanimous decision, Esteban was found guilty on all counts. The judge, in sentencing, referred to the murder as an act of brutal cowardice disguised as affection. Esteban was sentenced to 46 years in maximum security. Valeria's family, devastated but dignified, chose to speak only once after the verdict. Her mother, in a quiet voice, said, "We want people to remember who she was, not how she died." But for many in Colombia and beyond, the way Valeria died has become a call to action. Her face has been carried in marches across Bogotá, Medellín, and Quito. Her story has been added to feminist curriculums, spoken about in schools, and used as an example of why emotional abuse must be taken seriously before it turns deadly. People who had never followed her in life now know her name, not because she was famous, but because her death exposed how fragile safety can be in the digital age, and how predators can hide in plain sight, charming, quiet, and always watching. Valeria Márquez is no longer here to speak, but her silence echoes louder than any scream. She represents countless women who are told they're overreacting, being dramatic, or reading too much into things until it's too late. And now, as her killer begins his life behind bars, the question that lingers isn't just how justice was served, it's why it had to come at such a terrible cost. Could this have been prevented? Should the signs have been clearer? Could someone, anyone, have intervened in time? What do you think? Did the justice system do enough? Or does the real accountability still lie with the culture that let Esteban become what he was in the first place? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Respect Valeria's memory, but don't stay silent.